Baltimore Orioles are wrapping up their homestand with the Texas Rangers, and the Ravens are still on the backfields beating each other up this week. Luke Jones has done double duty all week long here, whether it's Camden Yards for baseball or football, and of course we have fireworks in practice on Saturday night, and of course very little fireworks down at Camden Yards, a pitcher's duel on Wednesday night between Kevin Gausman and Cole Hamels, and the Orioles on the right side of that and clinging to this first place advantage and playing some decent baseball against a very good baseball team, Luke.
Yeah, really nice start to this series. We saw Dylan Bundy do his thing on Tuesday night, and then on Wednesday, Kevin Gausman gets off to a rough start. You're having flashbacks to what happened Friday night in Toronto, where turned in arguably his worst start of the year. It was certainly one of his worst two starts of the year. Had a bad one at Fenway earlier this season, but after that second inning, 35 pitches. It looked like it could get away from him, and he limited the Rangers to one run. He really settled in pretty nicely after that. Good fastball command, and before you know it, you look up, and he had thrown 58 pitches over his final 5 innings. That's what allowed him to get through 7 innings. Got some good defensive plays. There's no doubt about that.
Hardy, nice.
Yeah. Wasn't as dominating as Bundy was on Tuesday, but certainly pitched well enough. And when you throw 50 pitches through your first 2 innings and you end up getting through 7, that's saying something. So as far as the offense, it was all about the first inning. They got to Cole Hamels, Matt Wieters with the big 2-run single up the middle to make it a 3-1 game. And then after that, they didn't really do much of anything against Cole Hamels, who settled in and pitched like the ace that he is.
Cole Hamels, quite frankly.
Yeah,
right?
And Buck Showalter said before the game and after, he would probably put Hamels as his Cy Young favorite at this point, even over Chris Sale. So it just shows how well he's pitched and how highly the Orioles manager thinks of him. But a nice
and
win.
He didn't have to cut up the Phillies jerseys; they just got rid of him. Right?
Right. They just traded him. But this was a nice win. You think about it. You beat Yu Darvish and Cole Hamels back-to-back nights. That's what you're going to have to do in the playoffs if you run into a team like Texas. Cleveland certainly fits that description as well, with pretty imposing 1-2 punches. So nice to see the Orioles do that. The bats didn't do a whole lot, but you're not expecting them to do a whole lot against Hamels. The good news was they took advantage in the first inning when he was off his game a little bit, and that ended up holding up thanks to Kevin Gausman and then the 2 guys in the bullpen, Darren O'Day and Zach Britton.
It's nice when you beat a $23 million pitcher, right? Especially with your first-round draft pick who, didn't even really begin the year in the rotation, kind of, sort of. It's all. And Hamels has been better this year than he ever was, really, as a Philly. And with the Phillies, he had some pretty good years. 09 was a nice year for him, but this year it looks like he's more comfortable in Texas than he's been anywhere else.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation. And it's funny because where I live, not that I'm watching the Phillies every night, but know enough people that do, and certainly they're on TV quite frequently here in southern Pennsylvania. But with Hamels, there was so many years where he pitched well, but Phillies fans always wanted a little bit more. And he had some seasons where 2009 he wasn't all that good. I think it was 2013 he had an ERA in the higher 3s. This guy's been a really good pitcher, but he's also had some seasons where his ERA was more Chris Tillman-like, let's say, 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, along those lines. He's gotten to Texas, and this year, he's been really, really good. He's averaged
19-3 going into the game last night overall since he was dealt. Right, it's incredible.
Yeah. He's striking out a batter per inning. He gives up a home run here and there. And we've talked about home runs being up around baseball, so that's not atypical. But he's just pitched really, really well, and we know that ballpark in Arlington that they're trying to replace in a few years here. But that's a place that hasn't always been real easy on pitchers. But he's pitched really, really well there, and it's so funny. I think back to last year. Remember when Texas made that move? A lot of people were scratching their heads because, remember, they weren't that good at the time.
No doubt about it. We all scratch our heads and say, well, they're doing that for next year, right?
Right. And then they end up going on the ridiculous run. They make the postseason, and you look at where they have positioned themselves now. Now, it hasn't worked out the first 2 games of this series, but they acquired Carlos Beltran and Jonathan LaCroix to make that lineup that was pretty good to begin with even better. But it's that the key for them is going to be how Hamels and really Darvish, I think, is going to be a major key for them.
He looked good on Tuesday night.
He did. Yeah. He did. But it gives them a 1-2 punch that you really like going into the postseason. But that said, give the Orioles credit. They didn't crush either of these guys, but they did as much. They did what they needed to do, and they did just enough. And they got good pitching on their own side from Bundy and Gausman, and they come away with 2 wins. And hey, another series win, and Wade Miley takes the hill with the chance to earn a sweep over a team that's been really, really good. And oh, by the way, Orioles enter Thursday once again sporting the best record in the AL. So as much as it looked like the sky was falling a week ago, here we are, the Orioles back on another winning streak. It's just it's been a crazy season and a lot of fun in that regard as well.
Well, these games have been a little bit playoff-ish, right? Like if you're Jeff Bannister, you're waking up today, in a hotel in Camden Yards and say, man, Darvish pitched great on Tuesday. Hamels pitched well enough on Wednesday, 1 inning. Man, we're here with the broom coming out on us, and we've had our best pitchers pitch well enough to, quite frankly, probably win a lot of postseason baseball games.
And that was one of the narratives after the game on Thursday night. Buck Showalter was even asked about it, and Buck's someone who really won't, he's not going to be wishy-washy about things. He'll tell you whether he agrees with something or not. And he said, yeah, it did feel a little bit like the playoffs, but he said it's because you had 2 guys who pitched really, really well. Again, early on, it was looking like this was going to be an 8-7 kind of game, but Hamels settled in very, very quickly, and Gausman settled in soon after that. So, when you have good starting pitching, you kind of get that playoff feel to it. And the reality is, these 2 teams have played really good baseball. Have they both had their stretches where they've struggled? Yeah. But these 2 teams have been amongst the cream of the crop all year long. These 2 teams have been in first place primarily in their divisions all year. So it's been really, really fun to watch it from the Orioles side. And after Texas handed them some losses there, nice to see the Orioles return the favor.
Well, and now we get a look at Wade Miley now, don't we? The Masson folks had a wonderful shot of all the other 4 pitchers who weren't on the hill last night gathered together in the dugout and eating sunflower seeds and no doubt discussing strategy against Carlos Beltran and Adrian Beltre. But it was a kind of a nice little picture, and I guess Wade Miley, who is on his 4th team in 4 years now, gets himself dealt right into smack dab into a pennant race and has a chance to break out the brooms on a very tough team. Griffin goes to the hill for Texas tonight, but this is the end for the Orioles. Now they go back on the road again, and we know what a different team they're going to be the next 10 days.
Well, if they stay true to how they've been all year, it's brace yourself because it's going to be a little bumpy. That's typically how it's been, and especially they're going to be going out west then after this series in Chicago. But Wade Miley, we'll get our first look at him. He's a guy features fastball, slider, curveball, change. I think his repertoire. The fastball is right around 90 miles per hour. He's not he's a kind of a prototypical left-handed starter. Doesn't throw real hard, but throws hard enough. And I think, looking at some of the different stats, you go on his Fangraphs page, the changeup's been pretty good for him this year. I think the slider is a pitch that's been pretty quality for him as well. The fastball's okay. The curveball looks like it's more of a pitch he just mixes in, not maybe necessarily an out pitch for him, but he has 4 pitches, and he doesn't have overwhelming stuff. But this is a guy, we've talked about it, despite the run prevention part of it, kind of just being average or even slightly below average, if we're being honest. And this year a little more than slightly below average, if I'm being totally honest about it. But he's a guy who will give you 6 innings, pitch into the 7th inning quite often. That's kind of been his MO. It's funny because you just mentioned, he's on his 4th team in the last 3 years, but look at some of those other teams. Arizona, they've had all kinds of pitching issues, and clearly things haven't worked out there for them. Boston's having issues with their rotation, I think you just look at that and say, okay, this guy doesn't have a great ERA. We get that. He's not an ace. He's not someone that you want to be your number 1 starter. We understand that. But at the same time, there's still value to a guy gobbling up innings and giving you a reasonable shot to win. The whole point of this move is getting the Orioles to the 6th or 7th inning and only giving up 3, maybe 4 runs at the most, over that time.
Well, the stability part of it's huge, especially 2 nights after they have not burned their bullpen up.
Right.
Tonight is a night where Buck looks at it and says, well, maybe tonight's another night I won't have to burn my bullpen up.
Yeah,
I won't have to go out there in the 4th inning and get him.
Right, and you don't expect them to pitch 7 shutout innings if we're being realistic about it, but you're also not expecting Wade Miley to get knocked out in the 2nd or 3rd inning like we were seeing from Jimenez and Mike Wright and Tyler Wilson as the year was going on. Or Gallardo, you throw him into that equation, probably to a little lesser degree, but still, he's a guy who's fallen apart quite often and getting to the 5th inning. So, you're looking for him to give you 6 strong innings, maybe pitch into the 7th, and either have a lead or be down 3-2, be down 4-3, and not a great outing, but you'd say, okay, you'll take it because your bullpen's intact and you have a chance to win in the later innings where you have an advantage because you have an offense that, for whatever reason, has done a pretty good job scoring in the late innings. And the big advantage in the late innings for the Orioles, of course, their bullpen. So they're set up nicely here. They'd like to see Miley give them some length, but at the same time, because Gausman and Bundy pitched so well the previous 2 nights, they do have a little more flexibility in their bullpen that if he runs into trouble, they don't have to leave him in. But certainly they're looking for much of the same from him to try to piggyback on what Bundy did in the first game and Gausman in the second game. You want to see Wade Miley get off to a good start with the Orioles, and I know they talked about this. We discussed this the other day. He's someone that's been on their radar for a few years now. They've attempted to acquire him in the past. We'll see how it works out. I don't expect a sparkling ERA from him over the next 2 months, and even next year if we're talking about that far in advance. But I do expect him to give them innings and give them a chance to win.
All right, Luke Jones joining us here. He will be at Camden Yards this evening for the conclusion and, of course, all day and every day out in Owings Mills. Tell everybody about your, little double duty and double life here. And this is really, when we talk about the Orioles taking my press pass, this is when I can't cover the Orioles, when I probably would cover the Orioles and, let you get some rest. But busy week for you, and I know there's no place you'd rather be, but the practice fields out in Owings Mills, it really is a little second city-ish when the Orioles are in first place, playing a first-place team, and Cy Young candidates out on the hill, right? I mean, that's where the Orioles are going to be every day during this training camp. And it really, I don't want to say it diminishes the Ravens, but nothing good's going to happen at Ravens camp on a Wednesday afternoon. Only bad things happen in Owings Mills this time of the year, right?
Well, sure, and the reality is, we're still a week out from the first preseason game. I mean, I don't expect anyone to be amped up about the Ravens training camp, more so than the Orioles playing in first place and playing another first-place team and taking the first 2 games of a series. But this is my busy time of year. I gladly embrace it. Up early going out to Owings Mills and up late at the ballpark. But, life is good. When you're covering a very relevant and very good baseball team and, covering a football team that's coming off of a bad season, but historically, should be better, should be in the mix at the very least. In 2016, but right now I think the Ravens are on the back burner a little bit, and I don't even mean that as a swipe that they went 5-11 last year. It's just we're into the second week of training camp. The novelty of training camp being on, that's kind of worn off at this point. At this point, players start getting tired of hitting one another, and maybe we saw a little bit of that on Monday night, even at the stadium practice where there were so many skirmishes. But right now, just Ravens dealing with a lot of nagging injuries. Nothing. Other than the guys coming back from serious injury, and we're still waiting to see Terrell Suggs and Elvis Dumervil make their summer debut, and we know Steve Smith's still a ways away. Still hoping, still targeting week 1 to be ready for a return. But beyond that, just practicing picture questions about him anyway. But you go down the list. I mean, they're missing Crockett Gilmore. They're missing Moore. They're missing Timmy Jernigan right now with the rib issue. Will Davis, who isn't going to start for them, but could be a guy who factors into the mix at cornerback. He's missed the last couple days of practice. Kenneth Dixon, the rookie running back, and then as I mentioned, you have Smith, Dumervil, Suggs, Perriman, still waiting on him as he continues to progress from the partially torn ACL, and probably still going to be a little while for him. But last I had heard, he's making progress, which he wasn't last year, so that's a good sign. Still cautiously optimistic there. And Lorenzo Taliaferro dealing with the foot issue again. So a couple of those running backs being out, it's really opened the door for Terrence West. He's in my mind, one of the big surprises of camp early on. Now, how it translates to preseason games, and certainly how it would translate to regular season, those are big jumps. I mean,
we've all seen his ability, right? I mean, we saw it at Towson. Certainly he was drafted very, very well thought of in the draft because of his ability, but he's been, quite frankly, a knucklehead, right? I mean, literally.
Yeah, he has been, just work ethic has come into question. Coachability came into question, probably more so in Cleveland. Tennessee just, I don't think, really liked what they saw.
I'm sure Bernard Pierce was a great influence on him as well. So
Yeah, you kind of think about that. But at the same time, I'll give Terrence West credit. He's lost 15 pounds since last year. You can tell he's noticeably in better shape, and he looks explosive out there. Believe me, and I've been doing enough training camps now that you see lots of guys look really good during practice, and I understand that. Anyone who's skeptical, I completely agree. But at the same time, I'm not going to completely lie at what my eyeballs have shown me, and he's looked good.
That's why we send you out there, Luke.
Right, exactly. So I put it this way. I don't know what his role is going to ultimately be, and this is a guy who came into camp competing for a roster spot. I think he's put himself in really good position, and it certainly helps that other running backs haven't been on the field, but he's a guy that I'm really interested to see play in the preseason because he's not just looking like a guy who is going to make the roster. He's looking like a guy who's really trying to carve out a meaningful role. Now, does that mean starting primary back? That would be premature, but he's looking like a guy who wants to be a real factor in this running game, and we've talked about it all along. The Ravens have talented running backs. They have a number of them, but the big question that I've continued to ask is there a legitimate number one in the group? Justin Forsett was that 2 years ago, but we know that he's on the wrong side of 30, and he's a guy who hasn't generally had a big workload in the NFL. So you got to keep that in mind. Everyone else, Buck Allen, things you like about him, but things you don't like about him. Go down the list. Just about every one of those running backs has some kind of question mark. So Terrence West, just like the rest of them, has an opportunity to kind of seize the brass ring. And to this early stage, he's done just about everything you can. 1 week in the practice for whatever that's worth, which in the grand scheme of things isn't worth that much, but I think it's put him on the coach's radar a little bit more.
Luke Jones will be on the backfields today. He will be under the bright lights of Camden Yards tonight with his little orange broom for the Texas Rangers. We'll talk about Miguel Gonzalez tomorrow, right? I mean, there'll be a whole day for that tomorrow because I know Allen's already bitched about it this week. You and I have screamed a little bit about it, but they will face Miguel Gonzalez on Friday night at Comiskey Park. Hopefully still first place and hopefully adding another victory to their belt on Thursday night at Camden Yards as we see our first look at Wade Miley as an Oriole. I hope he shaved that thing up a little bit.
Yeah, the beard was a little rough. I saw him yesterday, and he had trimmed it. So, the Orioles, they've relaxed their facial hair policy a little bit over Buck Showalter's tenure. Remember, they didn't even let guys have goatees or anything like that.
You know how stupid that sounds? They've relaxed their facial hair policy.
The Yankees are even stricter about it. So, who knows?
What are we, invading Chicago this week, or are we playing baseball?
I know, right? I mean, it's just and look,
trim that hair; it's too long.
I like a little rhyme and reason compared to the ridiculous beards that the Red Sox have had over the last few years at times. But yeah, I'm not big on that. I mean,
even Eric Weddle's trimmed his up a little bit.
Well, he did, but it's growing back.
It always does. I mean, mine grows back like a silver shade.
Yeah, and I can't say too much. I'm the guy who regularly has a day or two worth of scruff. So I don't mind
look,
it, but
you look sexy with your beard because you don't let it go for 6 months, so you look like I don't even know what to ZZ Top. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. It just gets too itchy. I'll let it grow a little bit in the winter, but middle of summer, August in Baltimore, please.
I've grown a beard one time. When my wife got cancer the first time, I grew it just to see what it would look like. I have pictures of it. I am not attractive with that look. The Wade Miley look, the Kiesel look, not my look for me.
Yeah, and in Wade Miley's case, if he pitches well, maybe they'll relax it a little bit. But I think first and foremost they're concerned with how he fares on the mound, not how he looks.
He's competing with Johnny Bev out there at King Discount Liquors, if you're familiar with Johnny. So
Yeah,
give him a
yeah.
shout out. Tell him he's got the Wade Miley look. Luke will be at the ballpark. You can reach him, Luke, at WNST.net, as well as Baltimore Luke out on Twitter. If there is any breaking news at all in the backfields or with the Orioles or movement, you'll get it first on the WNST text service. That is brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis here this Thursday, every Thursday, always on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home, taking some calls. Luke and I will join him as well. Our morning newspaper hits your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It is powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. And anything you miss here from our Facebook Live, from our WNSTV YouTube channel, you can find in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app, and we come in crystal clear. Last but not least, our head coach, Brian Billick, joins us on Tuesday night at Greenmount Station in Hampstead. We'll be up there eating crab cakes, talking football, talking about the summer. I know I want to talk at length to Brian Billick about Denny Green and his mentorship. Brian lost one of his dear friends, and I lost a friend of mine at Denny Green a couple weeks ago who was always very generous with his time with us. We will be at Greenmount Station at 7 p.m. on Tuesday night. Crab cakes, beer, dessert, summer, pick up some produce on the way. That's how we roll when we drive to Hampstead. We hope to see you up there at Greenmount Station on Tuesday night with head coach Billick, all to benefit the Living Classrooms Foundation as well as swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry and for There Goes My Hero, always adding a little charity element. It's what we do here at WNST. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Dallas in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.